Death Stranding is a game about rebuilding and strengthening connections in a world that has been ripped apart. You go from place to place, delivering goods and re-establishing connections with people you only ever see as holograms. You build bridges and ropes and ladders to help not only you, but other players traverse the harsh landscapes. You never see another player, but you know you have helped them out and ease their otherwise sometimes frustrating experience with tools that you place in the world because they can leave you likes. It's a nice little serotonin boost when you place a ladder to more easily cross a river, and the next day you come back to the game and see that the same ladder has been given thousands of likes by other players who were in the same situation you were. Death Stranding was released in November 2019, about 5 months before we were all locked indoors for the best part of a year. It was analysed at the time as a typically Kojima satirical comment on our addiction to social media. But now we have all had to establish more permanent digital connections, it's become a bit closer to home. We have had to rely so heavily on online connections, seeing our loved ones through screens, celebrating birthdays miles apart and even mourning deaths without being able to hold hands in grief. A huge part of this connection has been through video games, whether it be just simply spending time in the presence of a character that represents your loved ones, going on virtual museum dates in Animal Crossing, or simply using video games as the thing that brings friends together. As with Sample to Bridges, re-establishing connections in a world torn apart, games have been integral in our day-to-day lives, for reconnecting, distracting, and just purely entertaining in a world where we can't really do much else. In this video, I want to discuss why video games have been so important to us over the last year, and how this last year has pushed games even further into the mainstream, not just as a form of entertainment, but as something important to our everyday lives. I posed the question, what video games are important to you, to the good folks over at the Planet Redbeard Discord channel. The answers consisted of games like Quake 3, Halo, Spyro the Dragon, Assassin's Creed, Max Payne, Okami, Lego Star Wars, Metal Gear Solid, and even more. A massively diverse range of games, and an equally diverse set of reasons why these games were important on the individual level. People spoke of how these games helped develop relationships with parents or siblings, how they helped them through some of the truly hard times in their life, sparked their interest in art, and helped them feel represented. The thing that linked these reasons together is that games are important for the way that they impact life outside of them. Since their formation, games have been seen as a hobby, a waste of time, and something to forget about when you get to a certain age. This year has proven that point to be irrelevant, and there is one game in particular that I want to talk about. Animal Crossing New Horizons took over the world when it launched in March 2020, and while I truly think that this game would have been incredibly popular and a Switch console seller without the global pandemic, the fact that we were all staying inside, not doing anything in real life, helped its domination somewhat. For me personally, this game was my whole life throughout the first 3 months of its launch. I worked in cinema, an industry that is possibly one of the worst affected by the pandemic, and with that came the obvious lack of employment. I'm incredibly lucky living in the UK to have been offered furlough, meaning I was able to still have some income whilst not being able to work with cinemas closed. This meant spare time, a lot of spare time. Me and my partner would play Animal Crossing like it was our job. We would wake up at 9 AM, boot up Animal Crossing, play for 4 hours or so, having a bit of a break for lunch, and then get straight back to our islands. It gave a sense of purpose, tasks to achieve, and a goal to strive for. The essence of this came very much from the way that the game itself is structured. Nintendo made this game with the intention of the player dropping in every day and making steady progress on the task put before them. At the beginning, that's harvesting various materials from your island to help build the museum, the shop, and for items for villagers moving in. The fact these tasks are fairly menial, and you often don't actually get the fruits of your labour, pun intended, for a few real-world days, would seem off-putting to me most of the time. I have a short attention span. But when it's the only thing going on in life and you don't have a real job to go to, the sense of purpose and joy you get from seeing your villagers happy with their homes and the upgraded museum and shop is pretty great. After a few weeks of completing tasks and raising money to pay Tom Nook for house upgrades, my island was complete, in the sense that the shop and museum were fully upgraded, I had the maximum 10 villagers moved in, and my boy KK Slider was coming down every weekend. I was scared that would be it for me, with the given tasks complete and the end credits having rolled, that my life in Argiello was to come to a steady end. How wrong was I? It took a good few months before I put this game down for longer than a day. This was where the game really took over my life. While in the early game, you spend a good few hours a day grinding out each task and collecting materials and the like. Once you've completed all you need to do for the day, there isn't a lot that is possible. A very intentional move from Nintendo. When you get the tools to start terraforming your island and redecorating every aspect of it, it hits a whole new high. I had a very specific vision for my island, as well as for the interior of my now fully upgraded house. I wouldn't stop until I had every item I wanted. I did stop before my vision was fulfilled, but there was months of trying. It's the longevity of Animal Crossing New Horizons that kept it so close to everyone's hearts throughout isolation. Lockdown went on far longer than we had originally expected, and so did my love for Animal Crossing New Horizons. At the time of writing, I haven't actually touched the game for a good few months, and it's filling me with joy reliving these moments. Finding my dream villages, spending hours on Turnip Exchange to make as much money as I possibly could for those dream items and final upgrades. Having strangers over to my island to trade and just generally living my life in this tiny island surrounded by these creatures that don't seem to have a care in the world. I've never played an Animal Crossing game prior to New Horizons, and I may not have played it if it weren't for the stay-at-home order. But it taught me a lot about my relationship with video games and the true societal impact that video games can have. I've seen a few people joke about how 2020 was like the summer of Pokemon Go, but the opposite. I see Animal Crossing as the Pokemon Go of having to stay inside. We've seen graduations, birthday parties, proposals, and wedding receptions played out on people's own islands in New Horizons. This game gave players the freedom that was taken away from their lives to do whatever they want, and it's a fantastic alternative. This is the power of video games, being able to push people through some of the hardest times, to fight away the darkness of the world and reconnect with those that we love, and even make new connections with complete strangers. Of course, I know we have always loved video games. It is an incredibly passionate community, and I recognise its power pre-COVID and the pace at which this medium has been growing within mainstream audiences. But the mindset that games are a childish hobby is something that we need to leave in the past. Games are so much more than the sum of their parts, they are important. Just look back at the responses I received from my Discord. These answers weren't, games are fun and I like killing stuff. They're about growth, representation, inspiration, and personal development. The negative viewpoint of games is almost entirely from older generations, and I understand that it comes through ignorance. But I know a lot of younger people who tar games and the people who play games with the same brush as those older generations do. And I see that as a destructive mindset. Let people enjoy the things that they enjoy, let people express themselves in the way they wish to express themselves, and let people dream about playing games as a job, because it is absolutely possible. These last 14 months or so should act as a platform from which games can launch themselves into absolute mainstream dominance. They are for everyone. They can help anyone. They always have and will continue to do so. But maybe the world didn't see that until now. I never thought I would be comparing Death Stranding and Animal Crossing in a video I'm putting out into the world. But where Death Stranding is the artistic representation of the horrible situation we have all been living through over the last year, Animal Crossing New Horizons has been the real-world coping mechanism. Both games changed by the world that we live in, and both giving additional importance to our lives, the way we view games, and our connections with them. Your game of the 20s plague may not have been Animal Crossing. Maybe it was Apex Legends, The Legend of Zelda, Doom, The Last of Us, Pokemon, whatever. Their function is the same, to help you, to entertain you, and to keep you going. Thank you so much for watching. This is, of course, my first of this type of video essay thing, so please do leave a comment with any constructive feedback to help me improve in future videos. I have loads of ideas lined up which I'm super excited to put out into the world. If you do want to talk to me a little more directly, you can contact me on Twitter @PlanetRedbeard or come over to my Twitch chat. I stream every Monday and Wednesday at 8 PM UK time. Thanks again, and I will see you next time.